The criminal justice system needs to have the skills, the resources, effective leadership, but more importantly, the independence that is required to investigate each and every credible claim of corruption and prosecute those who are responsible. The fourth lesson that we should learn from this experience is that the existing measures, with regard to the experience that we have had, the existing measures to ensure ethical conduct in the executive, among public representatives, and in the public service are not adequate. Government needs to consider instituting lifestyle audits of all senior political leaders and government officials as a matter of agency. If we were to have lifestyle audits right across the board, we should be able to minimize temptations and incidents of corruption. Our efforts to grow the economy are heavily dependent on entities like Eskom, Transnet, and PRASA to provide goods and services to citizens and business alike efficiently and affordably. Madam Speaker, it is therefore essential that we act boldly to root out corruption in all these entities and return them to financial and operational effectiveness. The extent and the nature of this problem means that it cannot be achieved by government alone. It requires the involvement of institutions right across society, including the Public Protector, the Auditor General, law enforcement agencies, civil society groups, political parties, and Parliament. And this is a challenge that we should all take up. We are hopeful that all these efforts on various fronts will succeed in ending corruption. And let us admit that we have learned important lessons with regard to the corruption that has been raging in our country. What we now need to do is to buckle down and learn from these lessons and pursue those who've been involved in corrupt acts. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Ranto.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Deputy President, for the response. But, Deputy President, yesterday we had a witness in the inquiry who said we took too long to attend to the corruption that is happening in the SOs, in the entities. Deputy President, as a chair of the IMC on SOE reform and a member of the cabinet of South Africa, why did you not do anything about the corruption in the SOEs?
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, as I said in my initial input, these incidents of corruption are only now spewing out in the manner that all of us have become aware of them. And to this end, if you will listen, to this end, the various parliamentary committees have now been set up to go through all these. And the admission that will be made is that, yes, as news has been coming out about what's been happening in our various state-owned enterprises, we have delayed and taken too long to act against those who have been involved in all these acts. The IMC that has been set up, which I chair, is an IMC that is looking at policy parameters on, for instance, the share ownership architecture. It's been looking at things such as the appointment to boards, how board members should be appointed, how remuneration to state-owned enterprise executives should be organized, and indeed how the Presidential Review Commission's work should now be implemented. Now, we have relied on the criminal justice agencies to, as they get information, to get down and investigate all these. And in some cases, there have been lapses. For instance, when it comes to PRASA, it had to take the board or board members to take the NPA to court to say, why are you not investigating some of these issues or cases that have been presented to you? Now, there have been lapses, and the lapses have been across the board. But to be correct, the public protector has also conducted quite a number of investigations, and she has made a number of recommendations as well. The Auditor General has also found a number of flaws in all this. Now, what all this calls for is that all of us must now be involved in a massive effort to root out corruption in all state institutions. And that's why we are saying it should also even start here at the level of elected political office bearers, that they must be the ones who will do these audits so that we can declare more directly, precisely what our interests are. And that is why I've also said, when it comes to state-owned enterprises, there needs to be a clear separation between what the board is entitled to do and what management can do. Where there has been failure, it's where board members have mixed their roles with executive members, where they've meddled and gotten involved in operational matters, and where they have second-guessed the role of executives. And that is where we need to start and effect a clear separation of the roles that we should have in all these state-owned enterprises. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Esther Reason.
Somlomo kube yiphutha bekuqonda ukucindezela mina angazi uma ngivumela ngiqhubeke yini.
Qhubeka bhuti.
Ngiyathokoza Somlomo. Honorable Deputy President, I like the admission that you are only realizing this now. I would imagine you speak for the rest of the House, because we have a president who the ANC elected with 783 charges of corruption over his head. You were silent then. The Scorpions were disbanded. You were silent then. The law enforcement agencies have been captured. You were silent. Albeit the warning signs have all along been there. Your silence has aided and abetted the prevalence of corruption in this country. So why should we believe you now that there's political will when the country is already in the gutter? And when we said these things, we were accused of politicking. You say you must start here. The opposition started here many years ago raising these things, but you kept quiet. So now this is a face-saving exercise in the face of crisis. Why should we believe you now when all along you have run away from the realities we presented before you?
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
This is not the time for finger pointing. This is the time for action. And I welcome, listen. I welcome your enthusiasm.
Order, honorable members.
I welcome your robust enthusiasm with regard to this matter. We welcome it because what you are displaying, and indeed what all of us are displaying, is that we abhor corruption. We want to root out corruption from South Africa in our state-owned enterprises. Now, this is a message And this is a voice, or these are voices that must raise their decibels so that it becomes very clear that we want a corruption-free South Africa. We want to rid this country of corruption. And as I said in my main input, rather than be screaming and shouting, as many of you are doing on the other side, let us buckle down and work together to root out this corruption. That is what we should be doing, especially you, lady, who is pointing fingers. This is the time where we should act together. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Now, the reality of the situation, Deputy President, is that we are witnessing looting at a mega industrial stage and form in South Africa. As a result, state-owned companies owe to the excess of 250 billion rand of guaranteed debt, such that if the lenders would withdraw that money, it will have to be the responsibility of the state. It will collapse the whole fiscus. Now, in the recent past, when there were allegations that were later on proven and cleared by the board of the PIC, Mr. Gigaba commissioned a forensic audit on the PIC. But it's a prima facie case here of Eskom of 500 million rands that has been paid to Trillion Capital for doing nothing, absolutely nothing. That has been confirmed by the board and everyone else concerned, including the former COO of Trillion Capital, which is a Gupta-linked company, are saying that we received 500 million rands for nothing. Why hasn't there been a forensic audit commissioned on Eskom? We are responsible for state-owned companies. Why hasn't government done anything? Yes, we're doing something as parliament. Why hasn't government done anything about the 500 million that has been paid to Trillion Capital? Why is there no forensic audit? Are you scared of the Guptas? And lastly, are you going to be removed as Deputy President? Because your friend said that you're going to be removed as Deputy President of South Africa very soon. It might be this week or tomorrow. Please clarify that.
Honorable Deputy President.
Let me start off with this 500 million. My information, Honorable Shivambu, is that there has been an investigation, or an investigation is ongoing. I am on record as saying that any amounts of money that were unduly paid should be returned, should be paid back, because that money belongs to all of us as South Africans. So any amount that has been paid out unduly, and particularly monies that have been paid out without any invoice, without any work having been done, should be returned and should be returned immediately. Now, I have heard the responses from companies such as McKinsey saying that if a court of law says they should return it, they will return it. And I'm saying that that is going to delay this matter unduly. Those amounts should be returned, and they should be returned immediately. And if any court has to rule, the money should now be in the coffers of Eskom, because it belongs to the people of South Africa. In relation, and those who were responsible, by the way, those who were responsible in dispensing all these largesse and these monies should be taken to book. They should be investigated, and our law enforcement agencies should immediately be on the case and to make sure that they account for what they did. Because anybody who gives out money without having received an invoice, without regard for work that has been done, should actually be taken to task. In relation, Honorable Shivambu, with these statements that have been made about my removal, I must tell you that when I was appointed Deputy President, I accepted the appointment because it is the President's prerogative to appoint or to remove anybody on the executive. And if the decision is to remove me, I will accept that as a decision that will have been taken by the President, and I will continue serving the people of South Africa in one form, shape, or another. That's all I can say on this matter.
The Honorable Mazzoni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, given what you've just said about meddling in state-owned entities, I hope you're going to use your influence to make sure that no one meddles in the Public Enterprises Committee while we execute our constitutional mandate of oversight as we look at our public enterprises. I think that more than ever we are going to need you to stand up, man up, and make sure that that committee is left to do their business and be protected. But Deputy President, given the gross financial mismanagement at these state-owned entities, specifically those that fall under public enterprises, would you agree that it's now time for Minister Lynn Brown to be removed as Minister, given the implications of her dealings with possible corruption, with overseeing entities that are quite clearly involved in state capture, gross financial mismanagement such as Denel? I think the time has now come for Minister Brown to be removed from her position, someone more capable to be placed in her position to take over and look after these entities, start leading them in the right direction. And Deputy President, if you don't agree with me, I'd like to know why.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Let me immediately say, Honorable Manzoni, Minister Brown, like me, is appointed at the pleasure of the President. Now, I am appointed, and so is she. If I were to be fired, it will be at the pleasure of the President. And similarly, anything that could happen to Minister Brown would also be at the pleasure of the President. So it is not for me to say who should be appointed, who should be fired. Like I am also part of those who are appointed and fired. Now, I would like maybe then to suggest to you that you should pose that question to the President, who does all these firings and all these appointments himself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Before I proceed to the next question, I just wish to welcome the pupils from Bloemhof Girls High in Stellenbosch. They are from grade 10 and 11 in economics with their teachers, Mrs. Lezan and Van Rooyen and Mrs. Anne-Marie Klenk. Welcome. We now come to question number 38 from the Honorable Reverend Mishwe. The Honorable Deputy President.
Just to say to the girls from Bloemhof High, I'm sorry you come to Parliament when I'm being grilled. Madam Speaker, the current global and economic downturn has seen a contraction in investment flows globally, and our own country has not been immune to the contraction. The global trend in relation to foreign direct investment flows is to invest domestically and also in the traditional developed markets of the world and big emerging economies such as China and India. South Africa's drop in the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report ranking from 47 to 61 is attributed to an increase, as they said, to corruption, to crime and theft and government instability. That means that we need to decisively tackle corruption and address the governance challenges as a matter of urgency in our country. At the same time, we need to strengthen our efforts to promote investment, Government has established the IMC on investment to oversee our overall investment policy, alignment, coordination, and improve investment climate. As part of this approach and in consultation with the private sector, we have established an intergovernmental clearinghouse, which we call Invest South Africa, as a one-stop shop approach to investment. To counter negative perceptions, Invest South Africa meets with investors on a number of platforms to discuss investment opportunities and to discuss the concerns that investors may have about investing in South Africa. In view of the slowed growth and the decline in foreign direct investment, Invest South Africa is intensifying its effort to do a number of things, and one of those is to find ways of attracting foreign and domestic investment in our country. It has also formalized the relationship with the World Bank to address South Africa's ranking in its annual Ease of Doing Business survey and overall investment climate issues over the medium to long term. Now, this entity we call Invest South Africa continues to do a wonderful job with regard to marketing South Africa and to market it as a lucrative and attractive investment destination. For the first 2 quarters of this year, Invest South Africa has achieved quite a wonderful feat in that it has achieved an investment pipeline of a whopping 42.7 billion rand. More probably, and more broadly rather, government's massive infrastructure program is improving conditions for investment, as foreign investors can see that the government is prepared to invest in its own economy. Incentive programs like that in the auto industry are continuously attracting new investment and are encouraging companies to expand their operations, as we will have seen with a number of these companies investing more money to expand their operations and raise their productivity. Despite the challenges, investors see South Africa, Madam Speaker, as an attractive investment opportunity and destination, as well as a viable long-term investment place. If we are to realize our economic potential, however, we need to meaningfully address the problem of corruption and the stability in government. Once we have done that, I'm certain that investor confidence will improve in South Africa, and we will be able to once again move up, Honorable Meshwe, in the global competitiveness rankings. I have no doubt that the dip that we have had is a momentary one. We will rise again. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Meshwe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Failure by government to effectively deal with persistent high levels of crime, corruption, state looting, and government instability is one of the main reasons why the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality continue to haunt us. President Jacob Zuma's latest cabinet reshuffle, after 7 months since the last one, seriously undermines any effort to restore and inspire business confidence, which we need to improve our prospects for economic growth. Deputy President, there are unconfirmed media reports that you could be the next to be reshuffled by the President because you are being accused of being a spy for the Western capitalists. This speculation creates even further uncertainty. How will government improve our global competitiveness and inspire business confidence when government instability and political uncertainty are being exacerbated by unwise decisions such as the latest cabinet reshuffle by the President and talks of more reshuffles that would even target you, Deputy President? Thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Now, Honorable Speaker, the issue of instability has been raised by those who rate us globally. And when they have looked at us, they see all those issues I referred to, corruption, crime, as well as instability. And truth be told, as we do a number of things and as we act like, for instance, the recent cabinet reshuffle, we must admit that it has added to the narrative of instability, largely because the changes that have been effected were effected only a few months after the last change. Now, the one that you are positing about my removal, as I indicated earlier, is a matter that I cannot comment anything about because I'm not the one who decides on these matters. And if I were to be removed, it would be at the pleasure of the president. And whatever its impact would be something that will have to be analyzed by a whole number of other people. I'm not able to analyze what the impact is likely to be. But it is the president's decision, and the president exercises his prerogative on matters like these as he takes his decisions, and clearly he must have his own reasons why he appoints and removes people, which we are not privy to. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy President. I would hope that your body language doesn't tell us that you are tired. Thank you very much for sitting up. Deputy President, tourism is under attack. We are all well aware of the frequent attacks of on people who come into the country intending to stay for 2 weeks, and yet they go back the very following day. And that definitely has a negative impact insofar as reliability of our security forces is concerned. Time and time again, we sit with reports indicating that departments are being so poorly run with irregular expenditure, fruitless expenditure, under expenditure. This dampens the enthusiasm of any potential investor, especially if they're considering coming in as partners to government when the other party is not running its own business as well. Now, where criminality is on the high, resulting in social instability where investors would want more stability. Lastly, incompetent and inappropriately qualified labor force does not augur well for a country that is looking to attract investors, because you end up with people who cannot do the basic things that need to be done in, in the economic circles. What is your response to that? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Filtane, as I indicated earlier, some of the key challenges that face our country indeed are corruption, as well as criminality. The issue that you raised about tourism being under attack is one case in point, where tourists, for instance, arrived from Holland and were in a bus, and then they were attacked. And some of those who attacked them, we are told, happened to be police officials. Now, that is a matter of serious concern. Hence, we have dropped in our global competitiveness rankings. And these are matters that are clear indicators to us on what needs to be done. Because we need to root out, one, corruption. We also need to root out criminality. Also within the state sector, where we have deployed people who are supposed to perform their tasks and to perform them to the best of their ability. Now, where we find that people are not performing their tasks and they are not serving the people of South Africa, they should be removed. They should be removed from those positions, and we should, following great due diligence, make sure that we appoint people who are able to perform the tasks that they are supposed to be given. We should not just appoint people for the sake of them being in positions to please whoever. We should appoint people who are ready, willing, and able and capable of serving the people of South Africa. This is what is important, and this is what will get us to resolve the challenges that we face. If we are to do that, and we are to do that doggedly, we will be able to reduce corruption in our country and to reduce criminality. If we can do that, then you will see that we become a very attractive nation to the world, and people will continue streaming to our shores. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kulu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize. We had a little problem with the buttons here today.
You do look like Mr. Kulu.
It's just faster on the button. Anyway. Honorable Deputy President, apart from the Global Competitive Index, you also mentioned the World Bank, and currently we are rated 125 out of 190 countries, 79th overall, which doesn't make good reading at all. Also the question about what is the additional steps for government. The NDP, Pakisa, the 14-point plan, the 9-point plan, nothing will make, they will not deliver more on target unless they are overseen by a dedicated ministry, and this is not happening. Political decisions and matters that have economic consequences will naturally affect investor confidence. Decisions like our most recent self-serving reshuffling of cabinet. I know it must be very difficult for you, sir, but how concerning is it for you as leader of business? It's under your watch that this government is cornering itself into irrelevance while at the same time setting fire to business and investor confidence in this country. So where do we go from here? How do you propose we overcome this? Are we not more concerned about damage control than rooting out a rot? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Clearly, we have our challenges and we have our work cut out for us. Now, these challenges that we face should not tell us that we should run away or give up. What these challenges should tell us is that we must buckle down and do the work that needs to be done. In my book, there are really 4 determinants. The first one is how you allocate your resources in any undertaking is what is important, and how you make sure that those resources are well used, are well managed. Now, that would address the question of utilizing our resources properly and also avoiding corruption. The second one is who do you place in certain positions to make sure that you execute your objectives. Now, we need, as I was saying earlier, to appoint the right people to do the job at hand. And the third one is to make sure that there's implementation. And implementation means that there must also be accountability and consequence. Because if there is no consequence, then we are going nowhere. And on an ongoing basis, we must be able to monitor what we are doing. Now, if we were to combine all these, having set out what our objectives are, we should be able to have all the wherewithal, the instruments to address all these. Now, if we now know where we are, our ranking on a number of fronts has gone down, but the wheels have not come off. The wheels have not come off. There is still the pillars of our democracy, the pillars of what has made up this South Africa we live in now are still in place. The foundation is there. All we need to do is to realize that we are now going down and we are hitting rock bottom, and the only way is to go up and address these challenges, root out corruption, have the right people in the right positions, and implement the plans that we have. If we can do that, Honorable Member, this country will start rising in the world rankings, and we will become the jewel that our people would like South Africa to be. And that is where we are headed. Now we know what the real challenges are. we can only go one way, and that is up and get better and better at everything we do. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mkhaliphi.
Ngiyabonga Somlong. Deputy President, one of the mentioned reasons for declining global competitiveness index is state looting, right? You are reported to have mentioned the issue of state capture in various platforms. And you correctly identify the Gupta family as element to the whole problem of the state capture. But one of the Gupta brothers said you are misinformed about the family, and he challenged you to back up the claims that the family is using and abusing public funds. Now, Deputy President, can you put it on record here and assure the public that you are not part of the state capture? Why do you say that the Gupta family is abusing public funds? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When you say I'm not part of state capture, I hope you are not saying that I'm also capturing, because I'm not capturing and I'm not captured. That should be clear on the record, and by whoever, foreign forces or Guptas or whoever. I'm not captured, and I'm absolutely clear about that. In my own conscience, in my own heart, I have never been captured by anyone. Now, having said that, I mean, the evidence that is clearly coming out, the evidence that is coming out through what we are reading in the emails and so forth, does in the end give a lot of evidence, and some of it might be circumstantial, some of it might be direct evidence that that family is in one way or another involved in all this. Now, it is for this reason that we have called for a commission of inquiry, and that family should welcome the appointment of a commission of inquiry, so that they should have an opportunity of also clearing their own names. They must subject themselves to the commission, and we're hoping that this commission should be appointed soon. And the President, I know for a fact, has been busy at it and working out precisely how this commission should function. So we should all look forward to this commission of inquiry being appointed so that it can do its work. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 39, asked by the Honorable Malgas to the Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, the reduction of poverty and inequality is the central objective of our government's economic program. The most effective way to reduce poverty is through the creation of jobs and the development of skills. Since 1994, we have used a combination of instruments to tackle poverty. These include the reprioritization of the budget towards a pro-poor expenditure, social security measures, provision of services and facilities, and the redistribution of assets and creation of employment. Budget spending continues to favor those areas that have the greatest impact on poverty. As we work to grow the economy and overcome the legacy of apartheid inequality, a process that will take quite a number of years, our social security system is critical to improving the lives of the poor people in our country. The number of social security beneficiaries has continued to grow, as does the value of the various social assistance grants. Since 1994, government has been firm in its resolve to improve access for the poor to other social services such as health services, social services, food security, nutrition, transport, housing, electricity, and education. Now, if you look at all that whole suite it's because the government has been very concerned about the poor in our country. It is important that our citizens receive the support they need to chart their way out of poverty. Key in this regard are government policies on land reform, the delivery of housing, the reform of water rights, infrastructure development, and meeting of energy requirements. Through the implementation of the public employment programs, particularly the expanded public works program, many poor households are able to receive a stipend that goes a long way in alleviating poverty. And we're counting hundreds of thousands of South Africans who are benefiting in this program every year. In fact, we count up to 1 million a year. Additionally, we have seen services being delivered through labor-intensive methods while creating assets and effecting training to people who are less skilled and who need skills to be able to get on with their lives. In conclusion, there are a number of strategies that government is employing to combat poverty. Some involve the provision of basic services such as healthcare, as I've indicated, and all these programs are meant to make sure that our people do live in a situation where their dire conditions are alleviated. One could ask, are all these having an impact? And I'd like to believe that they are making an impact, much as the Statistician General's report indicated that poverty has increased in our country, but in the main, we've been able to reduce poverty over the many years, and we need to do much more than what we have been doing in the past. Do we have plans in place to do so? Yes, government is determined on an ongoing basis to look after poor people in our country, and not only look after them, but to give them the tools, the wherewithal, to be able to get out of the position of poverty. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Honorable Malgas.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. Having observed International Day for the Eradication of Poverty on the 17th of October, which acknowledged the call to action made on the 17th of October 1987 to break the silence of poverty and to act in solidarity to put an end to poverty and to build a path towards peaceful and inclusive societies. This requires all nations to heed the calls made by the UN and honor human dignity of people living in poverty and to continue to fight to end the discrimination they suffer. My question, Deputy President, could you elaborate, because you spoke about the plans government has, could you elaborate on the plans government has in place in relation to create jobs, improve local economy, and promote and empower small, medium, and micro enterprise business in impoverished areas? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Malgas. The government continues through a number of initiatives and interventions to seek ways of addressing the situation of poverty in our country, as I indicated, through a variety of programs. The policy thrust of our government is pro-poor. We are determined to make sure that we eradicate poverty in our country, and nearly every program that we embark upon is aimed at addressing the situation of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. This triple challenge that our country continues to face is a clear focus of our government, and the prioritization of our budgetary process is aimed at precisely addressing these three challenges. Now, when it comes, for instance, to localization, empowering people at the local level so that there is inclusive growth, that is one area that we're focusing on to make sure that the economic interventions that we embark upon are aimed at precisely addressing this. This past week, we were in an area in the Free State where we were looking at the public employment programs that we've got there. And the pleasing thing is that even through these types of public employment programs, we are focusing more and more on localizing the participation of people. We know, like, for instance, we were at a road building initiative or intervention where our government in the Free State is building or constructing a road of some 13 kilometers. And what they have sought to do is to use local labor, is to use local materials as much as possible, and have dispensed with the notion of having big construction companies. Now, this is helping the people on the local level to become economically active. They participate in this project on their own. Small and medium enterprises are being formed. Training is taking place. So through a plethora of initiatives, we are giving life and meaning to the concept of inclusive growth through localization. And on the small and medium enterprise side, our government is committed to supporting small and medium enterprises, to grow them, to nurture them, and to give them access to markets. And through the set-asides that we're putting in place, these small and medium enterprises should be able to thrive and to be successful. So these are the initiatives, Honorable Malgas, which we are putting in place. They are aimed at addressing precisely the challenge of poverty that our people are facing. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to put a question to you today. Because of the briefings from within your own party, are to believe, this could be your last oral question session as Deputy President. It sounds like the only buckling down you're going to get to is packing your office. I'm sure the Deputy President would agree with me that social grants, although insufficient, are one of the key measures to alleviate the suffering caused by poverty and unemployment. Now, yesterday, Deputy President, the Minister of Social Development, Bathabile Dlamini, and her department failed to show up at the Portfolio Committee, where they were supposed to give a progress report on the Constitutional Court order for them to give their monthly update on the social grants crisis. Does the Right Honourable Deputy President agree with this no-show, and do you approve of it? And as if not, as the leader of government business, what do you intend to do to compel the Minister of Social Development and her department to respect the Constitutional Court and respect this Parliament? Or do you intend to continue to sit on your hands, as you've done the last 2.5 years, as ministers disrespect this Parliament? Thank you.
The Honourable the Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, if that eventful day ever happens, that I need to pack my office and vacate, Honourable Speaker, I hope you will allow me to engage the services of Mr. Steenhuisen to come and pack up in my office. I will lay out the boxes and he will pack up my books, and I hope that he will be ready and willing to carry them out, to load them on a van and drive me away. So I hope he will be willing to do that. Now, coming more to this question, with regard to the Honourable Minister Bathabile Dlamini, this is a matter clearly that I have to discuss with her, because I have often taken time, rather than stand on public platforms, speak to the gallery, to discuss with colleagues that I serve with in government about all of us not only herself, but all of us, living up to the responsibilities that we have. And if indeed she did not appear and attend to the parliamentary committee process, I will be having a discussion with her, and we will do it in the quiet of my office, and we will make sure that indeed all of us as members of the executive do live up to what the public and indeed to what Parliament expects us to live up to. And I hope Honourable Steenhuisen does not find that unacceptable. He's nodding his head, meaning that he finds it immensely acceptable and very supportive, and I thank him for that. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Hlengwa.